Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
Dear listeners, before we get started, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. My parents spent years glorifying my deadbeat brother and trashing everything I built for myself. Now they were the ones begging. But what I did next that flipped the entire script they had written for me. I'm 32 now. Been working my butt off as a landscaper since I was 19. I started from the bottom, literally mowing lawns in the sweltering heat, dragging hoses, digging trenches. Now, I run multiple crews for a high-end residential landscaping company. It's good money, tons of responsibility, and yeah, actual career growth. But my parents never saw it that way. Not once. They always treated my younger brother, Damien, like he was God's gift to humanity. He's 2 years younger than me, 30 now, and he's never held down a job longer than 6 months. But somehow, in their eyes, he was exploring his options. Meanwhile, I was settling. Because, God forbid, I chose a blue-collar career. Dad's this old-school construction foreman, been with the same company for over 30 years. And Mom does hospital billing. Solidly middle-class people. But when it came to Damien, they acted like they were raising a crown prince. The entitlement started way earlier than I ever realized. When I was 14, I saved up for months working at the local grocery store, bagging groceries, hauling carts in the snow, dealing with rude customers, so I could buy this sick mountain bike I had my eye on. It was matte black, full suspension, top of the line for a kid like me. I still remember the pride I felt walking out of that store with it. The second I wheeled it into the garage, Dad glanced at it and grunted, "Hope you're not planning to get it muddy. You paid good money for that." I blinked. "It's a mountain bike, Dad. That's kind of the point." He just shrugged and walked away. The very next weekend, Damien took it out without asking. Came back an hour later with the frame bent, the seat torn, and deep scratches down the side like he dragged it through a metal fence. I lost it. "What the hell, Damien? You didn't even ask. You trashed it." Before he could answer, Dad came storming out of the house. "It's just a bike, Miles. Don't be so materialistic. Your brother could have been hurt." I was speechless. Damien stood there, not a scratch on him, smirking. What really twisted the knife? A month later, Damien got his own mountain bike. Not because he earned it, but as a surprise gift. For what? For improving his attitude after he got suspended from school. For fighting. Make that make sense. Then came my senior year. I busted my ass in high school and got accepted to state with a partial scholarship. I was stoked. It wasn't a full ride, but it was something. I sat down with my parents at the dinner table and explained the numbers, how much tuition was covered and how much was left for housing and food. I asked, "Do you think you could help with housing? Even just a bit? You always said education was an investment." Dad laughed. Laughed like I just told him I wanted to buy a spaceship. "You've got 2 hands and a strong back. Figure it out." So I did. I worked landscaping all summer. Saved every dime I could. Eventually, I made the practical call, community college, while working full-time. It made financial sense. I could chip away at school without drowning in debt. But you'd think I told them I was joining a cult. Mom actually sighed when I told her. "Community college isn't a real college," she said, rubbing her temples like I'd crushed her dreams. I tried to explain. "It's not forever, Mom. It's a stepping stone. I can transfer later." She cut me off. I guess not everyone has university potential. I just stood there, swallowing that. Meanwhile, Damien had barely graduated high school, scraped by with D's and a couple summer school makeups. His grand plan? Taking a gap year. Which, in our house, was just a euphemism for sitting in the basement playing video games all day, maybe working 15 hours a week folding jeans at the mall. But to my parents, Damien's really figuring out his path. Dad would beam at relatives over Sunday lunch. He's not rushing into anything. Smart kid. I'd be sitting there across the table, bleary-eyed from pulling a 12-hour day, classes from 7 to noon, landscaping till nightfall, while Damien sprawled on the couch back home, surrounded by empty chip bags and soda cans, playing my PlayStation. The one I bought. Sometimes there'd be a girl I'd never seen before. Sometimes a couple sketchy-looking guys. They'd camp out there for hours, yelling, vaping, whatever. My parents? Said nothing. Never once told him to turn it down or clean up. And when I asked for help, just once, $800 for a semester of landscaping design classes, something to invest in my actual career, I got the same damn line from Dad. "You've got 2 hands and a strong back," he said, shaking his head. "Figure it out. That's what men do." But for Damien, they paid his entire first year at state. Tuition, books, dorms, everything. He didn't even make it through 1 year. Flunked out after a semester of partying. And their response? "College isn't for everyone," Mom said gently, like he'd just come home with a scraped knee. "He's just too creative for structured learning." I remember telling Alex, my buddy from high school, how things were going. We were sitting in his garage, having beers. Dude, he said, your parents act like they owe Damien everything and you owe them. I shrugged. That's just how family is. But deep down, I knew he was right. I just didn't want to admit it. Things hit another low when I was 25. Damien borrowed my credit card. Didn't even ask. Just took it and bought $700 worth of concert tickets for himself and his buddies. 7 of them. $160 each. I didn't even find out until the bill came. At the next family dinner, I confronted him. Calmly, too. Damien, I said, you used my card without asking. That's theft. I need that money back. He scoffed, like I was being dramatic. Chill out, man. It was just tickets. Before I could even respond, Mom jumped in. He wanted to treat his friends to a nice experience, she said. Like that made it okay. I blinked. With my money, Dad waved it off. You make good money now. What's the big deal? It's not like you have a family to support. Damien just sat there at the table, smirking the whole time. I'll pay you back when I get my tax return, he said casually, like it was nothing. Of course, he never did. What they didn't know, what I didn't bother to tell them anymore, was that I'd been saving for a certification program. One that would qualify me for supervisor level at work. That $760 he burned through? It meant I had to delay enrolling for nearly 6 months. 6 months of lost pay increases, 6 months of grinding it out without the title I'd earned. When I finally did get certified, I had to pay out of pocket by picking up extra weekend shifts, sometimes working 13, 14 days in a row without a break. And when I told my parents about it, nothing. No good job. No, we're proud of you. Not even a text. Damien, though, he got hired at a bar, stayed 3 weeks, and quit because the hours were too inconsistent. They gave him a congratulations on your new beginning card with $200 inside. When I got my first real promotion to crew leader at 24, I scraped together a small celebration at this local pizza place. Invited a few close friends. I even called my parents, hoping maybe they'd come by for a slice. Dad said flatly, it's just landscaping, Miles. Call us when you get a real career. Meanwhile, when Damien got promoted to head bartender at some rundown dive bar, which, as far as I could tell, just meant he was the only one there who could mix a martini, they took him out to a fancy steakhouse. Mom posted pictures of him online, posing with his cocktail shaker like he'd just invented mixology. You're on social media now? I asked, half joking. The difference was staggering. Mom would share every ridiculous one of Damien's Instagram posts, no matter how cringeworthy. A photo of him flexing shirtless in some club bathroom got the caption, "My handsome boy enjoying his weekend." Meanwhile, I posted pictures of a major commercial landscaping project I had designed and managed. We're talking a full business park, with custom stonework, lighting, water features, everything. Crickets. Not a like. Not a share. Not even a comment. For my 30th birthday, Mom sent me a $25 Applebee's gift card. No call. No visit. Just a cheap envelope in the mail. For Damien's 28th, they surprised him with a weekend trip to Vegas. Flights, hotel, and $500 in spending money. All for a guy who had just ended a 2-month situationship. When I brought it up, just calmly pointed out the difference. Mom didn't even flinch. Damien needed a break, she said, hand on her heart. That breakup really took a toll on him. He dated her for 2 months, I said. That doesn't mean it didn't matter, she replied. He's sensitive. Speaking of relationships, mine never stood a chance. Every time I brought a girl home, my parents found some way to quietly sabotage it. Like with Caddy, my college girlfriend. Smart, kind, funny as hell. I really thought she could be the one. Mom spent the entire dinner that night sipping her wine and eyeing Caddy like she was a bug under a microscope. At one point, she actually leaned toward me and said, loud enough for the whole table to hear, "Some women just aren't nurturing enough to make good wives." When I dated Rachel, she was a dental hygienist, solid job, sweet person. Dad kept making these weird little jabs all night. "So, Rachel," he said, chewing a mouthful of steak, "you looking for a provider, or are you one of those independent types?" She laughed awkwardly, not sure how to respond. Then he doubled down. "Just asking, you know. Some girls go into hygiene for the sugar daddy circuit. You're not the gold-digging type, are you?" Right to her face. Like he thought it was funny. I was mortified. She never came over again. Then came Chloe. She was different, an environmental science teacher, smart as hell, passionate about her work. And she actually respected what I did too. Said landscaping was just another form of living design. The first time I brought her to dinner, Damien couldn't handle it. You could see it the moment she walked in. He sized her up like she was some kind of challenge. He spent the whole night hovering around her, leaning in too close, cracking sleazy jokes. At one point he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "So, Chloe, you know Miles is still hung up on his ex, right?" I nearly dropped my fork. She blinked. "What? Just saying," Damien added with a smirk. "You're way out of his league. You could do better than a dirt guy." "A dirt guy?" I looked at my parents, expecting them to shut it down. Say something. Anything. Mom just giggled, shaking her head. Damien's always been such a charmer with the ladies. Dad chuckled and gave him a nod like he'd just scored a touchdown. In the car, Chloe was furious. Hands clenched around the steering wheel. Your brother is a total creep and your parents just enable it, she said. And I had nothing to say because she was absolutely right. The pattern just kept playing on repeat. Damien would screw up again, and they'd bail him out like he was some tragic, misunderstood genius. I'd hit milestones, make actual progress, and they'd act like it didn't matter. It was like living in a twisted version of reality where Damien got trophies for existing, and I got scolded for trying too hard. But the real breaking point? That came with the Tacoma. It wasn't brand new, but it was mine. A 3-year-old Toyota Tacoma in great condition. I had worked overtime for months to afford that thing. My first vehicle that wasn't a hand-me-down or some junker off Craigslist. I remember walking up to it in the dealership lot, keys in hand, heart racing. I'd never bought anything so nice for myself before. I was so damn proud. One Sunday, I drove it over to my parents' place for dinner. Still doing those out of obligation, trying to keep the peace. Damien showed up already half drunk, slurring his words, acting like a clown. He had the truck from the porch. Compensating for something, big guy? He snorted, nudging my shoulder. I ignored him. After dinner, I stepped outside for a smoke, needed some air. And that's when I noticed. The truck was gone. Gone. I rushed back inside, heart pounding. Checked by the door. My keys. Also gone. I knew immediately. 2 hours. 2 hours I spent calling and texting Damien. No response. I was about ready to report the truck stolen. Seriously. I had my phone in hand. The non-emergency line pulled up, heart thudding, hands shaking, and then I heard the bass before I saw him. Damien. He rolled up with the music blasting so loud the windows vibrated. My truck looked like it had been through a demolition derby. Empty energy drink cans littered the floorboard, the passenger seat, the dashboard. And then I saw it. A huge, jagged scratch down the driver's side. And the rear bumper? Dented. Like he'd backed into a pole and just shrugged. He barely put it in park before stumbling out and tossing my keys at me like it was a damn joke. Borrowed your ride to pick up Stacy, he slurred, grinning. She wanted to see if the back seat was as roomy as it looks. Then he laughed. Actually laughed like this was some frat prank and staggered inside like he hadn't just trashed the only real thing I owned that I was proud of. And here's what no one else saw. I had just spent the entire previous weekend detailing that truck. Every inch of it. I washed it by hand. Waxed it until it shined. Got down on my knees to scrub out every bit of dirt from the floor mats. Not because I'm obsessive. Not because I don't have better things to do with my weekend. But because that truck meant something. It was the one symbol I had that everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built, was real. Mine. Earned. And now it had a 3-foot scratch, reeked of cheap perfume, and sounded like it had been driven through a rave. I stormed inside, absolutely fuming. Damien. I snapped. What the hell, man? You took my truck without permission, and now it's trashed. He didn't even flinch. Just flopped onto the couch and grabbed the remote. Dad looked up from his recliner, face scrunched like I was the one being unreasonable. Don't be so dramatic, Miles. It's just a scratch. Just I stared at him, incredulous. Mom piped up next, her voice soft, like she was trying to smooth it all over. Family shares things, sweetheart. I'm sure Damien will help pay for the repairs. Won't you, Damien? Damien didn't even look at her. It's already got scratches, he muttered, flipping through the channels. Probably trying to scam me to pay for your crappy driving. Then he chuckled. Besides, what's the big deal? It's just a truck. Not like you've got anything better to spend money on. That's when I lost it. You took my truck without permission. I snapped. That's theft. You damaged it while driving drunk or close enough, and now you're laughing about it. And you two are just sitting here defending him. Dad stood up, his voice rising. Don't you dare use that tone in my house. I didn't back down. Not this time. A mistake. I fired back. He stole my truck. He damaged my property. And you're acting like I'm the one causing problems? Mom's eyes welled up. Of course. Cue the tears. Her go-to move every time she was cornered. Why are you always so hard on your brother? She whispered. He's going through a tough time right now. He's always going through a tough time, I said through clenched teeth. And I'm always expected to just deal with it. Damien, still sprawled out, just smirked like this whole thing was a sitcom, and he was the star. Not my fault you're so uptight, bro. It's just a truck. Chill. That was it. I was done. I turned to Damien, looking him square in the eye. My voice didn't shake. It was low. Final. You have 30 days to pay for the damages, I said, or I'm filing a police report for theft and property damage. Dad shot up like I'd just insulted the entire family tree. You will not file a police report against your brother, he shouted. That is not how this family handles things. I didn't flinch. Then how does this family handle things, Dad? I asked. Because from where I'm standing, Damien gets away with literal crimes while I get lectured for being upset about it. No one had an answer. Just silence. That kind of brittle, angry silence that makes you feel even more alone in a room full of people. So I walked out. That night, I blocked Damien's number. Cold and simple. I texted my parents, told them I was done with him until he paid for the damages and apologized. Not one of those half-hearted, Damien-style sorries. A real apology. Accountability. Their response: "You've always been too sensitive," Mom said. And Dad: "Damien's going through a rough patch right now." Right. The same rough patch that's lasted since he was 17. The next few months were relentless. My phone would ring, and it'd be Dad, growling through the speaker, "Your mother's upset about this family rift you've created." Created. I created it, apparently. Not Damien stealing my truck and damaging it. Not them defending him. No, it was me. Mom, meanwhile, went full passive-aggressive. She'd text me photos of family dinners I hadn't been invited to, with captions like, "Someone's missing." Or worse, "If only everyone was here." But not once did they say, "Hey, Damien was wrong." Not once did they hold him accountable. Everything was always turned on me. I was the one who had to be the bigger person. I was the one who had to let it go for the sake of family harmony. Let what go exactly? Being disrespected? Being stolen from? Then came the turning point. About 6 months after the truck incident, everything shifted. I'd been busting my ass, taking on every extra project I could, staying late, showing up early. Always saying yes, always delivering. My boss, Christian, noticed. One morning, he called me into his office and just laid it out. "We're bumping you to head manager for all North County projects," he said. "You've earned it. Company truck. Full benefits. Major salary bump." I shook his hand, walked out, and sat in my truck for a full 5 minutes, just breathing. For the first time in my life, I felt like someone actually saw me. Like my work, my effort, it meant something. So I decided to celebrate. There was this brew pub downtown. I liked great food, solid drinks, laid-back atmosphere. I reserved the whole back patio, ordered a bunch of food, even hired this local musician who played acoustic covers of 90s alt-rock. The whole vibe was going to be chill and good energy. I invited my parents. Made it very clear Damien wasn't welcome. Mom immediately went into guilt mode. "He's still your brother," she said. "And family should stick together." Dad was more direct. "You need to grow up and get over this childish grudge. It's embarrassing for everyone." I didn't back down. When I stood firm, Dad snapped, "Fine. But don't expect us to choose sides in this little tantrum of yours." The night of the party came, and it was everything I hoped it would be. My work buddies showed up, people from softball, old friends I hadn't seen in months. Laughter, drinks, handshakes, hugs. Good people. And then Cameron showed up. Damien's wife. Alone. Which was shocking. Chloe was there too, looking incredible. Confident, supportive, genuinely proud of me. She had on this green dress that made her eyes stand out, and the way she held my arm, when people congratulated me, it felt solid. Real. Like everything I'd fought for had led to something worth holding on to. And then, an hour into the celebration, my dad showed up. Late. Of course. He walked in looking like he'd just rolled off a couch wearing this faded, stained Steelers jersey that had probably seen more nacho cheese than a concession stand. Not even a clean shirt. Not even a basic effort to look decent for his own son's achievement. Mom came with him, dressed better at least, and she pasted on a smile for the first few minutes. But she kept checking her phone. Over and over. Like she was waiting for someone more important to show up. Or maybe just hoping Damien would text and save her from having to pretend to be proud of me. The whole night, Dad wouldn't let up. He started with these loud, passive-aggressive remarks, loud enough for people to hear, quiet enough to be technically not directed at me. "Shame not everyone could be here to celebrate," he said at one point, lifting his beer and glancing around with this theatrical sigh. Or later, when someone complimented the venue, "Some people think landscaping management is a big deal, I guess." Every time Christian or one of my co-workers came over to congratulate me, Dad would swoop in like a seagull looking to crap on the moment. "You know," he said to Christian, "Damien could have been a landscape architect if he wanted. He just has bigger ambitions." I clenched my jaw so hard I thought I might crack a molar. Then Christian, trying to lighten the mood, pulled out his tablet. He had those before and after photos from the project I'd done for that tech CEO, the one with the hillside, native plants, and that tiered stonework waterfall. My design. My execution. You could see it plain as day. The transformation. The vision. My work turned a patch of sunburnt dirt into something people stopped to photograph. Christian handed it to Dad and said, "Miles led this one from start to finish. Design, execution, client handling, he crushed it." Dad glanced at the tablet for maybe 2 seconds before shoving it back. "Looks like a bunch of plants to me," he muttered. "Not exactly rocket science." I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just felt this slow burn in my chest like something inside was trying to boil out. That's when Damon, one of the newer guys on the crew, pulled me aside near the bar. Dude, he whispered, what's up with your dad? Why is he being such a jerk at your party? I forced a tight smile. Shrugged. That's just him, I said. Don't worry about it. But I was worried. I was pissed. Because here I was finally being recognized by people who saw my worth, and he still couldn't let me have that. Then Christian raised his glass. He started this really thoughtful toast talking about how I'd earned the promotion through hard work, how clients specifically requested me, how the company was lucky to have someone so dedicated and reliable on the team. Right in the middle of that sentence, Dad stood up, loud, slurring slightly, interrupting like he was the MC and not the embarrassment. Must be nice, he said, raising his voice so the entire patio went quiet. Getting promotions for just showing up and pushing a lawnmower. I froze. He wasn't done. Not like you're out there building actual structures like real men. Your brother would have run circles around this landscaping stuff if he wanted to, but he's always aimed higher. A few people looked away. Chloe's hand tightened around mine. Then he threw the final punch, spitting the words like venom. Shame you couldn't even invite your own blood to your little party. Some son you turned out to be. The whole place went dead silent. I mean dead. You could hear a bottle cap hit the floor. Christian's jaw literally dropped. Chloe squeezed my hand so hard I thought she might break something. And I just snapped. Not by yelling. Not by storming off. But by doing the one thing I had never done around my dad before refusing to play his game. I raised my glass, calm as hell, and smiled. Awesome, I said, real slow. Then Damien can start paying your mortgage too. I'm sure all those bartending shifts will cover it, when he's not busy stealing cars. Or maybe he can sell some of those actual structures you think are so impressive. Dad's face turned this deep, blotchy purple like he was going to blow a gasket. How dare you talk to me like that after everything we've done for you? He barked, pointing at me like I was a misbehaving toddler. I laughed, right in his face. Couldn't help it. Everything you've done for me. Name one thing, Dad. One actual thing you've done for me that you didn't make me pay back with interest. Mom tried to step in, her voice trembling. Miles, please. Not here. We're your parents. No, I cut her off. You're Damien's parents. I'm just the ATM you use when he burns through his allowance. Then I calmly set my glass on the table, turned to the rest of the guests, my coworkers, my friends, and said, thanks, everyone, for coming. Really. And I walked out. Chloe followed me, but I told her gently, I just need some space right now. She nodded, didn't press me. I got in my truck, the one I'd worked so hard for, and drove out to that overlook outside town. Sat there for hours, just staring out over the lights, the dark sky, the quiet. I didn't even feel angry anymore. That was what scared me. I felt nothing. Empty. Like a switch had been flipped somewhere inside me, and everything love, hate, frustration, hope just disappeared. All my feelings about my family, gone. Not buried. Gone. That night, I decided I was done. No more being the punching bag. No more bending to guilt. No more pretending. I pulled out my phone and called Alex, my buddy from high school who worked at the bank where my parents kept their accounts. Not exactly the most above-board idea, but he owed me big. Years ago, I covered for him when he nearly got fired for messing up some payroll at his old job. When he picked up, I didn't waste time. Hey, I said, need you to check something for me. What's up? I want to know how much my parents are helping Damien financially. Like, exactly. He was quiet a moment. That's dude, you sure? Positive. All right. I'll check it out and get back to you tomorrow. What Alex found the next day was way worse than I expected. The text he sent me just said, dude, it's way worse than you think. Alex's text came through mid-morning while I was grabbing coffee on a job site. When I read it, I stopped in my tracks. They've been paying his entire rent $1,850 a month. His car payment, $430. Credit card minimums around $600. They also co-signed a personal loan for $25,000 3 months ago, and they're covering that too. Their accounts are getting drained every month. That was all I needed to hear. I sat in my truck and just stared at the dashboard for a while. All those lectures about responsibility. All the times they told me to be grateful. Meanwhile, they were quietly letting Damien bleed them dry. I remembered I still had access to their email. Back when I set up their new desktop a few years ago, Mom couldn't figure out her passwords, so I kept the info just in case. I logged in and started scrolling. What I found made my stomach twist. Dad's company had started downsizing. There were emails between him and some HR rep where he asked about his severance options, worried about layoffs. They were actually behind on their own mortgage payments. Another message from the bank mentioned they'd missed 2 in a row. But what really hit was the credit card statements. Maxed out. 3 different cards. All with big, stupid charges labeled as Damien's emergencies. $3,000 at some hotel in Vegas where Damien apparently threw himself a birthday bash. $1,800 at a high-end electronics store. A full gaming rig. All that while their mortgage went unpaid and they were drowning in debt. That was it. I was done. Done waiting for them to change. Done pretending things would ever be fair. So I started planning my exit. The next week, I stopped answering their calls. Let every voicemail pile up while I made my moves. I found a new apartment an hour away, quiet, secure, gated entrance. Gave notice at my old place. Told Christian everything. Just enough so he'd understand why I needed my new address kept private, even from the company records. Before I disappeared, I made sure to leave a parting gift. I forwarded those credit card emails, all of them, to both my parents with a simple message in the subject line. Hope the golden child was worth it. No body text. No explanation. Just the cold, ugly truth. Then I remembered all those times Dad literally bragged about stealing materials from his job sites. Pipes, tile, even tools. He'd laugh about it at dinner like he was pulling one over on the world. Always talking about sticking it to the man. So I sent an anonymous tip to his company's ethics line. Not a fake tip. Not slander. I used his own words, the dates, the materials, the times he told us all about his little wins. Enough to raise eyebrows. Not enough to get him fired, but enough to make sure that when layoffs came, he'd be at the top of the list. Was it petty? Maybe. But after 30+ years of being held to a standard he never lived by, after watching him reward failure and punish success, it felt like justice. It felt like balance. Then I changed my number, deleted all my social media, got a P.O. box for mail, and vanished from their lives completely. The first month of radio silence was weird. I kept thinking the guilt would kick in, that at some point I'd wake up in the middle of the night feeling like I'd made some huge mistake, that I'd cave, call them, hear Mom crying, Dad lecturing, Damien pretending he was the victim. But that feeling never came. Instead, I felt this massive weight slide off my shoulders. Like I'd finally taken off a backpack I didn't even realize I'd been wearing for years. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't bracing for the next crisis. The next family drama. The next comparison to Damien. The next manipulative request wrapped in family guilt. I threw myself into work. Hard. Christian noticed the shift almost immediately. Within 3 months, I was exceeding every single target. Early mornings, site visits, client pitches, I was crushing it. The company gave me a performance bonus that month. A real bonus. And you know what? I gotta keep it. No emergency loan to Damien. No check to cover Mom and Dad's bills. Just mine. My new apartment was smaller, yeah, but it was in a quieter, better area, clean, secure, peaceful. I furnished it exactly how I wanted. No hand-me-downs. No mismatched furniture that Mom had begged me to just take off our hands. Everything I bought was mine. Chosen by me. The first thing I splurged on was this slick leather couch I'd had my eye on since I was 23. I'd passed on it so many times because Damien needed help or my parents had one more thing they couldn't afford. Not this time. I set up a proper home office with a real desk, not that busted folding table I'd been using since college. Hung up art I actually liked, no more garage sale landscapes or inspirational quotes from Mom's collection. For the first time, my space felt like me. Chloe and I hit pause. She supported what I was doing, cutting ties, but I could tell she needed space to process what that meant. That I had walked away from my entire family. I respected that. We stayed in touch though. Coffee every couple of weeks. Random texts. A dumb meme here, a thinking of you there. It wasn't romantic, but it wasn't nothing either. Meanwhile, I was building a life. Made new friends through work. Joined an adult soccer league that played on Sundays. Started hiking. Got into cooking, not just frozen stuff either. Like actual meals. I even started a side gig designing small-scale landscape plans for homeowners who couldn't afford full-service installations. I'd make template designs with plant lists and simple maintenance schedules. People loved it. I was making an extra $1,500 to $2,000 a month doing something I actually enjoyed, and best of all, there was zero family drama attached to it. I was putting myself first for once, and it felt incredible. About 8 months later, Chloe and I met up for coffee like we occasionally did. She ordered her usual oat milk latte with cinnamon, and I got my black drip. We sat outside, catching up. She stirred her drink for a while before saying, "So, I wasn't going to bring this up, but I figured you'd want to know. Your dad got laid off. Part of the restructuring." I nodded slowly. Figured that was coming. "Your mom's hours at the hospital got cut back too," she added, eyes flicking up to gauge my reaction. I just took a sip of coffee. "Yeah." She hesitated again. "And Damien? Still doing the same old stuff. Still the golden child. Still the one who could do no wrong even as everything around him crumbled. Except now, the difference was, my parents couldn't afford to keep bankrolling Damien's lifestyle anymore. Chloe had run into Cameron at the gym, Damien's wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife. as I'd soon learn, and apparently, Cameron didn't hold back. She spilled everything. According to her, Damien had been fired from not one, not two, but 3 different jobs in just 6 months. The last one was at a warehouse gig where he got caught stealing inventory and flipping it online. The manager didn't even bother calling the cops, just fired him to avoid the paperwork and headache. Typical Damien, skimming consequences like he always did. And remember that Honda my parents bought him? Totaled. Gone. Now he was driving Mom's car, her only car, while she took the damn bus to work at the hospital. Dad, the man who once scoffed at my landscaping career while bragging about his prized fishing boat? Yeah, he had to sell it. Claimed to everyone it was just time for an upgrade, but in reality, it was to cover Damien's spiraling debts. The cherry on top? Damien had officially moved back in with them. He couldn't afford rent anywhere. So now they were all packed into that tiny 2-bedroom house, 3 adults under one roof. Damien took over the living room. According to Cameron, the place looked like a frat house. Damien's crap scattered everywhere. Mom's nursing shoes by the door. Dad just sitting at the kitchen table with this hollowed-out look, like he couldn't believe what his life had turned into. Then the text started. I don't know how they have found my number. Unknown numbers. Distant cousins. People I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly trying to reach out. All with the same song. Your parents are struggling. They might lose the house. You should call them. My Aunt Lacey even left a voicemail. I played it once. I know they weren't always fair to you, Miles. But they're still your parents. Still my parents. I said nothing. Did nothing. Just kept living my life. Running my cruise. Making good money. Enjoying the peace. That quiet I'd spent years craving? I finally had it. And nothing was going to drag me back into that storm. Even my cousin Tim, who I'd always been sort of close with, gave it a shot. Smart guy figured out my work email somehow and sent me a message. Hey man, I get why you went dark. I've seen how they treated you versus Damien. But things are bad now. They're drowning in debt from years of bailing Damien out. Just thought you should know. I didn't even reply. Not because I was mad at Tim. Honestly, I appreciated the honesty. But I knew what would happen if I responded. One reply turns into a conversation, and a conversation turns into guilt, and before you know it, I'm back in that orbit. I wasn't ready to open that door. Maybe I never would be. And then, right around the 1-year mark, almost to the day, I got an unexpected visitor at work. It was Cameron. She looked tired. Not falling apart tired, but worn. Like someone who had carried too much for too long. Dark circles under her eyes. But she was still put together, still had that quiet grace she always carried, even when Damien was dragging her down. I was in the area for a job interview, she said when I stepped out of the office. Thought I'd stop by. We went for coffee. And just like that, she started filling me in. Everything. The whole family situation without me even having to ask. She and Damien had split up about 6 months ago. She told me flatly, without flinching, that he'd been cheating on her with multiple women. No drama in her voice, just exhaustion. She'd finally had enough. Moved out. Got her own place. Starting over. Your parents are in bad shape, she said, stirring her coffee slowly, her eyes avoiding mine. I leaned back in the chair, watching the steam rise between us. Yeah. She nodded. The bank foreclosed on their house. I didn't say anything. Didn't even flinch. Just let her keep going. They're in this tiny apartment now, like, really tiny. Your dad's basically blacklisted in construction after that tip about the materials. Word got around. He can't find decent work. I looked down at my cup. Still not a flicker of regret. Your mom's hours got cut to part-time. Cameron added, quieter now. They're broke, Miles. I mean really broke. And Damien? I asked, and even I was surprised at how flat my voice came out. No anger. No pain. Just curiosity. Like I was asking about the weather. Cameron gave this dry laugh. No humor behind it. Damien is Damien. Of course he was. Still partying. Still charming his way through life. Still living on their couch. Still the golden boy even as they lose everything helping him. She looked at me like she was testing whether I'd react, whether I'd defend him, or them, or anyone. But I just nodded like she'd told me the sun came up that morning. Then she said something that made me blink. Damien had actually been offered a management position at one of his buddies' landscaping companies. A much smaller operation than mine, but steady work, leadership role. He'd turned it down. What? I asked. Cameron rolled her eyes and mimicked his tone. That's Miles's thing. And I'm better than that. I snorted. Couldn't help it. Of course he did. Instead, she told me, he was working on some startup idea. Something that, from what she could tell, involved playing video games all day and talking about branding strategies at bars. She never asked me to call them. Never gave me the they're your family guilt trip. Just told me what she knew, laid it all out, and let me sit with it. I don't blame you for leaving, she said when we stood up to go. I wish I'd done it sooner myself. Fast forward about 3 months after that conversation, so roughly a year and 3 months since I vanished, I heard a knock at my door on a quiet Sunday morning. I was in sweats, coffee mug in hand. I didn't even flinch. I just set the mug down and checked the security cam feed on my phone. I'd installed that camera specifically for this reason. It was Damien. He looked like absolute garbage. Unshaven, pale, eyes hollow, ringed with purple bags like he hadn't slept in days. Clothes sagging off him, cheap and ill-fitted. It was like someone had deflated him. I stared at the screen for a long moment. I considered ignoring it, letting him stand there until he gave up and left. But then curiosity, cold and clinical, got the better of me. I opened the door. Just barely. Left the chain on. Didn't step out. Didn't invite him in. "How'd you find me?" I asked, voice flat. He scratched his neck and glanced around. "Chloe told Mom where you work now. Took me, like 3 weeks watching the parking lot to figure out which car was yours and follow you home." I blinked. "So you stalked me?" He shrugged like it wasn't a big deal. "Can I come in?" I stepped forward just enough to block the doorway with my body. "Why would I let you in after you literally stalked me?" His eyes got desperate, darting back and forth. Then he blurted it out like a confession he'd been choking on. "Mom and Dad lost the house." I didn't say anything. He looked down at the floor. "Bank foreclosed last month. They're living in this crappy one-bedroom apartment now," Damien said, rubbing the back of his neck like he was trying to buy himself time. "Dad can't find work because of that tip someone sent his company about the materials. Mom's hours got cut even more." He looked at me with these wide, pleading eyes like he thought he was telling me something I didn't already know. "They've been helping me out for years, but now, they can't anymore." I just stood there, watching him. I didn't even realize how empty I felt until the words came out of my mouth. And he blinked like he hadn't expected that. "I'm screwed, man. I've got like 40 grand in debt. My car got repossessed. Cameron left me. I've been sleeping on their couch, but there's barely room for them, let alone me." As he kept rambling, I started noticing things I hadn't at first glance. His hands shaking slightly, eyes glassy, darting around like he couldn't focus on one spot for more than a second. And that nervous, twitchy energy like he'd had too much caffeine or not enough sleep, or maybe both. Classic signs. I'd seen them before. Hell, half the guys who used to work under me before I cleaned up my crew showed the same look. Substance abuse. I didn't even need to ask. But I said nothing. I just let him keep talking until his voice trailed off, waiting for me to rescue him. Still no emotion. Still waiting for the part where "this is my problem," I said flatly. That hit him. His face flushed red, and his jaw clenched. "Look, I know I messed up, okay? I was jealous. You always had your stuff together, and I didn't." That caught me off guard for a second. The confession. It was the first honest thing he'd said in years. But it wasn't enough. Not even close. He kept going. "But they're going to be homeless soon if they keep trying to help me. They're your parents, man." That was it. I stepped out onto the porch, shut the door behind me, and locked it with a loud click. Walked straight up to him, nose to nose. I didn't yell. I didn't shove him. I just stared him down and let it all out, calm and cold. "No," I said. "They're your parents. They made that crystal clear for 32 freaking years. I'm just the gardener. Remember?" His eyes flinched, but I wasn't done. I was the ATM. The responsible one who was never good enough. The one they could rely on to clean up your messes while telling me I was selfish for having boundaries. His voice cracked. "They talk about you all the time now," he said, soft, like it might change something. "Dad says he was wrong. Mom cries about how she should have stood up for you more." I actually chuckled, bitter and sharp. "Amazing," I said. "How they only realized that when the gravy train stopped running." He looked down, kicked at the concrete with his shoe. "Tell them I said congratulations on the self-awareness," I added. Better late than never. Damien's head snapped back up. The look in his eyes had shifted, less pleading, more entitled. That familiar tone slid back into his voice, smooth and sharp. "So you won't help? After all those years they supported you." I laughed. "Supported me? When?" I said, voice rising just a notch. "When they made me pay back every cent I ever borrowed with interest. When they showed up at my promotion party just to trash my career. When they defended you stealing and damaging my truck." Damien looked down at his feet like a scolded child. Then he mumbled, "They need 15 grand to avoid eviction from the new place and get caught up on bills." His voice was low, like he already knew what my answer would be, but couldn't stop himself from asking. I looked at him carefully. Really looked. That's when I noticed it just under his sleeve, a fresh tattoo. Still red around the edges, the way new ink looks before it settles. It wasn't some back alley amateur job either. It looked detailed, expensive. My eyes scanned down. His shoes were cheaper than what he used to wear. Yeah, but his watch? The same $400 designer piece he'd flaunted for years, even when he was struggling. Typical Damien. Still finding money for the things he wanted, while begging for the things he needed. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't let myself get angry. I just took a breath, locked eyes with him, and said it calmly so it would sting a little more. Get off my property before I call the cops. His mouth opened slightly, like he wanted to say something else, but thought better of it. I added, flat and cold, and don't come back. Ever. He stood there for a second, his shoulders hunched, his hands twitching like maybe he thought groveling a little more would make the difference. Then he turned and walked away, his figure slouching under the weight of a life he'd built on everyone else's back. I watched him go, and for a moment, I waited. Waited for the regret to show up. The guilt. The sadness. But there was nothing. Just this strange, peaceful emptiness. Like I'd finally set down a massive weight I'd carried for 3 decades without even realizing it. 2 weeks later, I was in the middle of reviewing schedules for the week when a new email popped up in my inbox, my work address, which I never gave out casually. Subject line, "We're sorry." I stared at it for a full minute before clicking. It was from Mom. The message was long pages, really. She'd written it like a confession, like every word was trying to dig them out of a whole decades in the making. She said they'd realized too late how unfairly they'd treated me. That watching Damien spiral without their constant bailouts had opened their eyes to how deeply they'd enabled him. She said Dad had been diagnosed with depression after losing his job, that the eviction notice was real, that they had nowhere to go. The email was full of convenient epiphanies. About how they had always admired my work ethic but didn't know how to show it. About how they were blinded by Damien's charm. About how their different parenting styles had created a toxic double standard that hurt me more than I ever let on. Lines that, once, might have meant something. Might have cracked through my defenses. We realize now that we took your strength for granted while coddling Damien's weakness. Your father can't sleep at night thinking about how he dismissed your career when you've created such a successful life for yourself. But all of it, every paragraph, was building toward the last line. The real reason behind the email. We need $15,000 to keep our apartment and get back on our feet. We know we have no right to ask, but we have nowhere else to turn. Damien told them about my new place. About how I'd moved up. About how I was doing well. And the email made sure to remind me of that too. It sounds like you're doing well, Mom had written. Please, Miles, we're still your parents. And the thing was, I was doing well. The promotion nearly doubled my salary. I had an emergency fund, savings, investments finally starting to grow, nothing major, but solid, stable, secure. I could have written them a $15,000 check and not flinched. It wouldn't have ruined me. But then I remembered. I remembered all those years of feeling like I didn't matter. Watching them throw lifelines to Damien while I dog-paddled my way through every crisis alone. I remembered standing at my own promotion party, something I'd earned through grit and grinding, and seeing Dad's face twist like I'd just told him I was quitting life to become a clown. Landscaping? That's not a real career. What kind of future does trimming hedges offer? Why can't you be more like Damien? So no, I wasn't going to send them a check. Not casually. Not unconditionally. Not ever again. Instead, I sat down with my lawyer and had a letter drafted. I wanted it official, professional, cold, if that's what it took to make the message stick. I am prepared to provide financial assistance under the following non-negotiable conditions. 1. I will pay the $15,000 directly to your landlord and creditors, not to you personally. 2. You will both sign a formal loan agreement with 8% interest identical to the terms Dad gave me when I borrowed money to repair my truck years ago. Payments will begin in 6 months. 3. Damien will check into a 90-day rehabilitation program for his substance abuse issues, with proof of completion required. 4. You will both attend 6 sessions of financial counseling again, with proof of completion. 5. You will sign a legal agreement stating that you will not contact me for any reason unrelated to loan repayment for a minimum period of 2 years. These terms are final and not open to negotiation. I had the letter sent by certified mail from the law office. I expected backlash, and I got it. Mom called my lawyer sobbing, begging him to talk some sense into me. Why can't he just help his family without turning it into some cold contract, she cried. We're his parents. Then came Dad's voice, gruff and bitter, in a voicemail left on the office line. Real men don't treat their parents like business clients. I didn't respond to either of them. No return calls, no emails. Just silence. I waited. 3 days before the eviction date, my lawyer forwarded me an email. They had signed a contract. Every single clause. Damien had actually checked into a 90-day rehab program, and the first payments had already been made directly to their landlord and creditors. No begging, no more guilt trips. Just quiet compliance. And that was that. My life now, it's unrecognizable from 2 years ago. Chloe and I, we're engaged. She said yes last fall while we were hiking up in the Blue Ridge. I didn't go all out with fireworks or a drone light show, just us, the view, and a simple question I'd been waiting to ask. She cried. I cried. Then we laughed for 20 minutes straight. I got another promotion at work. I'm now overseeing operations for the entire county, something I never would have dreamed back when I was just trying to hit my monthly targets. Christian pulled me aside after the announcement and said, "You've earned every bit of this, Miles. We bought a house together. Nothing extravagant. Just a clean, quiet place with a fenced yard, solid bones, and a little space to breathe. But it's ours. Every piece of furniture, every nail in the wall, we picked it together. And we have a dog now, Rex. A goofy mutt with endless energy and zero concept of personal space. He loves to ride in my truck, the same one I used to patch up myself when I couldn't afford repairs. I still have it. I still take meticulous care of it. Some weekends, we pack Rex in the back and head out to visit Chloe's family. Her dad meets us in the driveway with a hug. Her mom always has something baking. It's the kind of warmth I never knew I missed. Her dad actually asks me about work, real questions, not just polite nods. "How's the new project going, Miles?" he'll say. "Sounds like a big one." And he listens. Like what I do matters. Sometimes, on those drives, we take the route that passes through my parents' part of town. And occasionally, I'll catch a glimpse someone crossing the street, someone waiting at a bus stop, and for a flicker of a second, I'll think, is that them? But even when it is, I feel nothing. No anger. No bitterness. No need to pull over and demand apologies or throw anything in their face. No satisfaction either. Just nothing. And after a lifetime of being made to feel like nothing by them, that emptiness feels like the biggest victory of all. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.